In this fairly new role then that you find yourself in, what part of it, what part of your role and the work that you do makes your heart sing?
Elizabeth, I suppose what makes my heart sing always is when I can be of service to people. So in other words, when people come to me with a specific problem, which they find it hard to deal with, or a specific question, which has been with them for a long time, and they can sense that it carries for them huge importance, but they can't seem to find the answer. When I can help such people to find the answers, or to reach the clarity which they're looking for, I always feel that I have served, or I have been of service. And really, that is what really makes my heart sing, is to be able to help other people to help themselves.
You've recently established the Temple of Peace. Is this the purpose of the Temple of Peace?
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Really, the Temple of Peace, or the whole concept behind the Temple of Peace, is to help people to find the answers they are seeking, so that their lives may become filled with peace and fulfillment.
Théun, in the books that you've written, you've brought the legacy of the Toltec tradition to the world. What does Toltec mean? What does it actually mean?
Toltec is a very ancient word, and it quite literally means a man or a woman of knowledge. And it is quite as simple as that, a man or a woman of knowledge.
And knowledge in this context, how would you describe that then?
Exactly what I described earlier, knowledge of self and knowledge of life. Because we must remember, there's not a difference between self and life. We are alive, or if you like, a life, and therefore we are one with life. So when we speak about knowledge of self versus knowledge of life, it's really one and the same thing. Self representing the microcosm, life representing the macrocosm, and of course the microcosm and the macrocosm are one.
Are all Toltecs the same then? Those people who present themselves as Toltecs, are they all the same? Do they have the same approach?
Living in the world in which we live today, that's quite a difficult question to answer without stepping on toes. There are many today who have proclaimed themselves to be Toltec, but they are truly not Toltec. They are not men and women of knowledge. These are people who have mixed up what one might call the Mesoamerican culture and the traditions which arise out of the Mesoamerican culture with what is called Toltec. It is unfortunate that as far as humanity's present knowledge goes, the word Toltec became associated with the Mesoamerican culture. We do not have to go into the reasons for that now because it's long and it's complicated and it's quite technical. But for some reason, where the word Toltec stuck in humanity's memory was with the Mesoamerican culture. So much of what is today called Toltec shouldn't actually be called Toltec, should actually be called Mesoamerican. And that is where a lot of the confusion has come in.
So what then are the true Toltec teachings? I mean, is it a religion? Is it a belief system?
Elizabeth, Toltec is not a religion. And I want to be quite emphatic about that. It is not a religion. But I will come back and I'll clarify that in a moment. When I say it is not a religion, what I mean is to be Toltec or to be an apprentice to the Toltec teachings means to be a follower of the one truth, if you like, the one knowledge. It is to seek knowledge of self and of life. That is what it means to be, if you like, on the Toltec path. Why I said just now it's not religion? Because religion today has become as misunderstood as the word Toltec. What people today regard as religion is really what should by right be called a churchianity. Churchianity and religion is not one and the same thing. Churchianity is to follow the teachings of the church, whereas religion has everything to do with reaching back into time and digging deep into self to understand our roots of what we really are as human beings, or if you like, a son of God. But what does that really mean, as opposed to what the churches like to tell us it means, or what the churches like to teach us it means?
So then, on a day-to-day basis, then, how would the Toltec teachings themselves help us in practical terms?
Elizabeth, the Toltec teachings are of enormous benefit to humanity. In fact, we spoke earlier about the heritage of humanity. I am one of those people that very much see the Toltec teachings as being the heritage of humanity. The heritage in the sense that it's got everything to do with knowledge of both self as well as of life. So in that respect, the Toltec teachings today, although they are still very little known and very little understood, really belong to every man and woman upon this planet. It's their heritage.
So are you saying then that the Toltec teachings are not new to this planet?
It depends upon what one calls new to this planet. You must realize that man is far older than this planet. Man had existence within the universe before we came to this planet. But if we don't want to go that far back in history, let's just talk about this planet. Really, the Toltec teachings, as we understand it today, started on this planet from the time that man once again had the spark of mind and individualized. By individualized, I mean started to think and see himself, think of and see himself as being an individual that has the ability to think and to be a master of his own destiny. So we can, for the sake of simplicity, narrow the Toltec teachings down to say, from the time that man became a thinking creature, we have been gathering that knowledge, which today goes under the banner of the Toltec teachings.
How do they then differ from any other path, the Toltec path or the Toltec teachings?
In essence, they don't differ, because we must realize that all paths lead to Rome. There is, at the end of the day, there's only one life, and therefore there can only be one truth. And therefore, although we might have very many different approaches, or as you call it, paths, if the path is a true path, true in the sense that it's true to life, and that it's genuinely about knowledge of self and of life, then there is no difference between the Toltec teachings versus any of the other great, if you like, religions of this world.
So are you saying if I wanted to come and visit you at the Temple of Peace, that it wouldn't really matter if I was Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Hindu or any other belief system or type of religion?
Not at all. In fact, I find it always a joyful experience to be able to speak to people and to be able to interact with them when they come from different avenues of life. Because for me too, it then becomes a learning experience in the sense of, depending upon, let's say, in this particular case, you were asking me about religion, I always find it very enlightening to be able to converse with someone who maybe comes from a religion which I'm not that familiar with. And therefore it's for me always fascinating to start tracing to see where I can find the same truth, and then to be able to help that person to see, but you see, it's the same truth. It's the one life we're talking about, although the approach could be very different, and people use different names for different things, and they use different words to say the same thing.